Red light, and we're good. All right, cool.
Oh. What's going on, everybody? It is conference championship week. What an incredible, incredible weekend of football. I was actually live blogging the Green Bay San Francisco 49ers game on Saturday night, and I was like, how did I end up with the lamest game of the four? But even still, it was pretty exciting. I mean, it came down to defense and special teams, which isn't really how you would draw it up, but still pretty exciting. Eddie, how was your weekend?
Well, Jen, we were talking about it when we started the show last week, and how we were just like fingers crossed. The wild card was just full of like referee involvement, not great games. Like we just want good football matchups, and it's like we were given not only good, not great, not excellent, like arguably the best ever,
Phenomenal.
the best. 4 out of 4. I mean, starting with that first game, Bengals Titans, and I did pick the Bengals, so I was happy about that. But 9 sacks against Burrow. The Bengals forced 3 interceptions on Tannehill. Obviously, the late second field goal by McPherson. Then you go and have the next game, snow in Lambeau. You have a special teams great performance by them, by the 49ers, blocking a field goal and blocking a punt for a touchdown. And if you told me that Rodgers has snow at home in Lambeau holding the 49ers to 13 points, I'm like, oh, they scored 40. They won that game 40-13, and he's on his way to a title game. And then going to Sunday, just a beautiful game to look at. The Rams-Bucks, sunny Tampa Bay, Florida. And I thought, like, first one's boring. And then it's like, this is going to be the Atlanta Falcons 2.0. Brady's going to do it. He's going to come back, and it's just going to be this incredible story of like how the bloody lip early on, fighting with Hockley Jr., and he goes and does it. But I mean, Matt Stafford, and we can get into that after, just a nails performance by him. The throw to Cooper Kupp. I mean, are you kidding me? The guy's been outstanding, and both of them have been outstanding. And then obviously the game of all the games. And I tweeted something very stupid. I was like, we had 3 classics. This is going to be the stinker that everyone thought was going to be the good game. And it was like, I can't believe how good that game was. I can't believe how good Mahomes and Allen were. And it was just an overtime thriller. And say what you want about the rules, but the 13 seconds left, I mean, the Bills had the shot there. I feel so bad for Allen. I feel so bad for the city of Buffalo. I mean, who knows? I mean, we can also get into this. Like, who knows how that team will look next year? You know, losing their assistant GM, losing probably both their OC and their DC. But wow. You cannot top that weekend.
I mean, there's just so much to unpack. It's almost like hard to know where to start. And yeah, even a lot of this will have fantasy implications. Certainly, most people are picking games this weekend. If anybody out there wants to jump in and chat with us, we want this to be an open conversation. If you want to brag about how well your fantasy playoff teams did, if you just want to talk about like how you bet the game or what you thought about this weekend, that's what we're here for. So jump in. Eddie, where's the best place for everyone to find us? Is it the YouTube channel? Is that the easiest way to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, you could right now, Extra Points YouTube page. What we're watching right now is live on our YouTube page. Extra Points Facebook page, we're also live right there. You can comment. We will see your comments live no matter where it is, and we'll answer that. Twitter, don't worry about that. I have our Twitter live right now on my phone. So if you get a question on Twitter, I'll see that. And then also Twitch. If you're into gaming, you have a Twitch account. Extra Points also on there. I believe it's Extra Points Pod on all of the accounts, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. But we'll see them. And if you comment on everything but Twitter, we'll pop it up here live so Jen can answer, whether it's game picks, how we're doing the EP and Fantasy League, looking to next year's fantasy, whatever you want, we'll answer it.
All right. So I think maybe the thing to do is first quickly unpack the games from last weekend and what's going on in our fantasy league. And then maybe we'll kind of move toward some things that have happened this week. And then finally at the end, break down what we think is going to happen, what our picks are for this weekend. So we're going to jam pack this show. It's going to be awesome. So obviously we've talked about this before. When you're doing a fantasy postseason league, a lot of what you're picking is the games. It's not like a traditional fantasy league where you're like, well, Mike Evans is like the best wide receiver ever. And he's the only guy. I mean, there's only other Gronk. He's going to be huge. But if he doesn't get all the way to the Super Bowl, he doesn't do you as much benefit as apparently someone like Jamar Chase would. But again, I don't think anybody saw the Cincinnati Bengals getting this far. I have to say anybody in their fantasy postseason that actually has Joe Burrow probably has a fairly good advantage this weekend based on the matchup. I mean, Kansas City's defense has been terrible
Right.
Terrible versus passing quarterbacks. They are the defense that has given up the most points to opposing quarterbacks. And we saw Joe Burrow personally victimize them. 446 passing yards, 4 touchdowns just a couple weeks ago in week 17. Jamar Chase torched them, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns, like 55 fantasy points. And they're rematching. Now, interestingly, you mentioned, Joe Burrow and the sacks. 9 sacks. Was awful to watch. Horrible.
Yeah.
We're not even going to talk about the poor Tennessee side of the game. Derrick Henry looked pretty darn good. If you ask me, coming back, that we can talk about that on a future episode for next year. We'll stick with Cincinnati. But they still squeaked it out. The O-line did nothing for Burrow. I went back and looked at this Kansas City team. They sacked Burrow 4 times in week 17, which is like a lot of sacks, but for Joe Burrow. Apparently, that O-line is so terrible. And Kansas City is actually the 4th worst, the 4th fewest sacks during the regular season. So I don't think we'll see Joe Burrow be as limited as he was last week, because the Kansas City defense is like exactly the kind of defense that Joe Burrow could be really good versus, and has proven that he is very good versus. But the bummer here or maybe not the bummer here for us is we're 6 points behind. Let me just put it out there. We are in the lead right now. We are 6 points ahead. However, and what we're going to talk about the overtime rule. Oh yeah, we are. We lost both our quarterbacks last week because it was Josh Allen and Tom Brady. So we are now at a significant disadvantage. The only good news is the person in second place also lost both their quarterbacks. That's the Covered in Glory League. And then after that, about 20 points behind is -3. And unfortunately, they still have Patrick Mahomes. So we're probably screwed here, Eddie.
The one that, and I've been thinking about this a ton, because I had myself like on the league homepage refreshing, because especially as Josh Allen's doing this, and I'm like, he's playing out of his mind. If he knocks out Mahomes, which a lot of teams have, then I'm like, this is
we were going to run away with it.
We won. No,
like, it was done.
Literally,
I was like dropping the mic and walking away at 13 seconds. I was picking it up to text you, be like, this is game. It's over.
I was looking forward to this pod to then clip this off and just send it to everyone at EP and be like, hey guys, it's the divisional round just ended and we already won the fantasy. We don't need the championship round. We don't need to wait 2 weeks to the Super Bowl. It's over. Like we have it locked up. And then the unthinkable happened in 13 seconds. Dak Prescott needed 14 seconds to scramble. Patrick Mahomes got them down, whatever it was, 60 yards in 13 seconds to tie it up. And then obviously once the coin flip happened, we knew it was over. I will say this though. Not that I'm going to pick against the Chiefs and we can give our game picks later, but I did think like if I'm Joe Burrow, who do I want to play? Do I want to play the team that had the number 1 defense? They gave up a lot of points, but they have the number 1 defense. They have Josh Allen playing, like an alien, or do I want to play the team that I already beat once? That, the defense is, some, hit or miss sometimes. And I mean, he proved, like we talked about it, if there's a quarterback right now who's not going to poop the bed, it's going to be Joe Burrow. Sacked 9 times. Didn't matter. Like you have to sack him double-digit times until you're going to get to him. So maybe the chance that Mahomes has not a great game. They did force 3 turnovers versus Tannehill, so it could happen again. Mahomes was kind of sloppy early on. You never know.
I'm kind of with you. Like I don't think it's done. We're not completely cooked yet. I do sort of wish we had Deebo Samuel and Jamar Chase instead of Joe Mixon and Eli Mitchell. But at the time, that's what made sense. We did not see San Francisco going this far. We did not think the Bengals would go this far either. We still have a shot. We're not out of it. Obviously, we have Cooper Kupp, but so does everyone else. So that doesn't really help us. But we have Travis Kelce, and maybe Travis Kelce will throw a touchdown. That would help us. That would be good. He did that for us a few weeks ago. I think you're right about this Kansas City-Cincinnati game. And I know how good Kansas City looked, but it's about matchups. And the way these two teams match up, I think perhaps, to me, I'm jumping ahead a little preview, one of the easiest bets for this weekend, of course, as soon as I say that, I'm probably jinxing it, is the over in this game. 54.5 right now.
Yeah, and it's higher. It was higher. It's higher now than it was the game versus the Bills, which is unthinkable. But it's like, they're going to score a lot of points.
Right. So 54.5. I feel like that's a lock. I shouldn't say that because it never works out when you say that. But I like that. I like that bet. And that means that Joe Burrow is going to be great. So for your DFS lineups this weekend, I was looking at the pricing, put out a full video on this later. Joe Burrow, considerably cheaper than Patrick Mahomes, with actually a considerably better matchup to be successful, points-wise. So let's talk about that. Let's just go ahead and talk about that overtime situation because I need to get it out.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts too.
I was so mad. I cannot even begin to tell you how livid I was. And I don't know how you feel about this. Obviously, you wanted Josh Allen to move on, as did I, for obvious reasons for our team. But more importantly, I just don't think it is in any way fair that he didn't at least get a chance to respond because of an arbitrary coin flip. We've heard this a million times. Everybody says this. And of course, the counter argument is, well, sorry, but you left too much time, 13 seconds. True. That's true. Patrick Mahomes is that good. He got back in 13 seconds. Both defenses were completely gassed at this point. We've never seen anything like this, okay? So I'm not too upset with the Bills defense, but yes, it's true. They shouldn't have let them catch back up and tie it. But then I want to say to that, well, I'm sorry, but the Chiefs shouldn't have ever let it get that close in the first place. The Chiefs should have shut it down 2 minutes ago. So where do the should and shouldn't start? The only thing that seems fair to me is if it's back to zero, which essentially it is, we're all going back to a clean slate, then why in the heck would you let a team who's obviously just trading touchdowns flip the coin, and whoever gets the ball first, it's obvious that person's going to win. It's obvious. That's probably what's going to be. The other person should at least get a chance. Now, I understand the argument of it's much too exhausting. It's a brutal game. There's injuries that maybe you don't want to play a full 15 minutes. Maybe you don't play a full 10 minutes. But what's to say they can't at least have an equal amount of possessions? Because that's the case after if it's not a first touchdown. So what's the difference? You're changing one tiny thing. Like, I don't get it. I know I didn't play football. I know I didn't play sudden death, but I'm sorry. You work this hard. You work your butt off like that. You put up that kind of a performance, and it all comes down to the fact that you accidentally called tails instead of heads. I don't know, but I really hope that Josh Allen grows in this offseason and becomes seasoned enough to be like the way Harrison Butker is able to end up on the right side of a coin toss. But I guess you can only do that with a little more experience. And I think Butker's like a year older, so maybe next year.
Yep, and we're getting a comment from Twitch from Wallace about, like you're saying, defenses are gas. The game goes on forever, and that's kind of like my stance on it. Is obviously as a rather big college football fan, if you have the scenario where both teams definitely have to get the ball, then you get in that college kind of landscape where they get the ball to 25, then you have to start after the first possession each side. You have to switch over to the going for two in the extra points, and it gets kind of gimmicky. And I think that the hardcore, the purist NFL fans want to stay away from the gimmick stuff. Kind of the same thing. NHL going to shootouts, people don't love that. So I understand well, what's the next best option if the coin flip isn't good? Because the other thing that's funny too is I was thinking if any of the teams in the playoffs had to go into overtime, say it's Green Bay, San Francisco, say if it was even the first game, the Bengals and Titans, I kind of feel like the only two teams that definitely would score, the team that got the ball first on the first possession, would have been either the Bills or the Chiefs. I feel like every other game, we probably would have seen maybe a 3-and-out, maybe a field goal, and the other team gets the ball back. So I think, the ones who wanted to see an equal, opportunity overtime got screwed in this game because of the offenses. And like you mentioned before, the defenses were gassed. Now, speaking of the defenses, you jump in if you have a point.
But explain to me why that's any different. Okay, so let's say defenses are gassed, but if it's the other teams, their defenses are gassed too. Let's say they are.
Sure.
But we let them go down and kick a field goal and we keep going. So what? So then they play a little bit better even though they're gassed, so we keep it going. What about the touchdown makes it so much more different? What about those few extra yards? I mean, it could just be one long pass. It wouldn't even necessarily be more active. So I don't
I think that the field goal I get where they're coming, I think what their point is like if you kick a field goal from you kick a 55-yard field goal, you
didn't do much.
You didn't do it necessarily that much, especially because you're kicking the ball now. You're usually getting at the 25. You don't have to go that far, whatever, especially with these explosive offenses. Whereas a touchdown, you get all the way down there and you score, and they did rather quickly. So, I mean, like the full 15 minutes, I don't think it's even possible just the way the players are playing. They'd be gassed. I think like the both teams getting a possession, like then they're starting to go down the college route. I just think that the best case scenario would have been like a Chiefs 3 and out, and then like the Bills had the chance for redemption, or they go 3 and out. Then it's kind of all things equal. But to me, the thing that I'm still most upset about is with 13 seconds left. If you're the Buffalo Bills, and I'm not saying squib the kick, but don't kick it in the end zone, make them run. Just your whole thing is like these kickers are paid professionals. He could probably know, okay, I can kick this kickoff is going to land somewhere between the 5-yard line and the goal line, and I'll kick it there. They'll have to return it. Obviously, if they return it, then you're screwed. But if you stop them, then okay, then you killed some clock.
Right.
And then the Bills were rushing forward. Like Leslie Frazier, he should get a phenomenal year. Like number one defense, phenomenal year. He deserves to get a head coaching job, and he's been interviewed and will be interviewed a bunch of times. But rushing 4, when Mahomes is going to have to throw the ball, he's going to have to take the snap, roll around. If you have guys in coverage, more guys in coverage mean that there's less open options. If Mahomes scrambles, that's like how many seconds you taking off the clock? That's 7-8 seconds probably with one play, if not more. Rushing 4 and then leaving guys wide open to give them chunks after chunks with the timeouts. I don't understand that whatsoever. Like rush one guy, rush 2 guys, show you're going to rush 3 guys and maybe have like 2 of them back up. Just have more guys in coverage, make him find somebody open, and then keep everything in front of you. Because again, if he takes the snap in the shotgun, rolls around, makes a throw, like you're losing a chunk of time. And instead he was having these guys wide open, and it just like I don't get that brain fart on their end, where we would have avoided this whole entire overtime mess if it wasn't for what I think is a bonehead defensive scheme with 13 seconds left.
Yeah, it definitely was. There's no question about that. Being still though, I think that the general NFL fan, when watching this game, when they have that good of a game, when you're the city of Buffalo, deserves a chance to get your hands on the ball.
KC did bring it up for a vote though.
The rule. It's so weird. And Kansas City, I know, fell victim to this a few years ago. I just think it's time to change it.
The rule was voted against, what is it now, 3 years ago, for whatever it was, and they voted against it. I mean, and Josh Allen was pretty honest after the game. He was like, well, hey, if
he was cool about it,
we would have scored, and they would have been fine with it.
And 100%, like, absolutely. Like, I'm not saying that the Bills deserve to win. I'm just saying I feel like it should be changed going forward. So this is just like a good thing to have like conversation for moving forward. Unlike, putting Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, I know you want to probably get into that.
Never going to change.
It's
so that ship has sailed. But that's another podcast.
I was just saying we need a whole other hour for how bad the Hall of Fame is and how bad baseball is right now.
Oh my god. Yeah. So anyway, but personally, really upset that I lost my Josh Allen in the postseason, and we are harumphing. But good news is we hedged against our Josh Allen play and had Patrick Mahomes in our other postseason league, Eddie. Mm-hmm. And out of about 2,000 teams, we are ranked number 67. So we have a real shot. And we were playing it in the NFC tournament, and you get multipliers for how long your players stay in. So like we get 3 times points for Joe Mixon this week because it's his 3rd week playing. And then we had to start, say, Jerick McKinnon at running back this week because we lost, I don't remember, Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
We're only getting single points. We don't get the multiplier. But we're doing really well. And I have to tell you, we're doing well, I think, because of Evan freaking McPherson. We took him as our kicker, and we're getting all these multipliers on McPherson. And I think that's going to go well for us again this week because I think there's going to be a lot of points. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring opportunities. And perhaps the most phenomenal thing about this weekend, as much as we complain in fantasy, like we complain in fantasy all the time. I hate kickers. I do it. I'm guilty. Just forget the kicker. It's such an afterthought. After this weekend, I don't know that we're even allowed to say that. Every single game was decided in some fashion, whether it was taking it to overtime or won, by a kicker at the buzzer. A kicker at the buzzer. Do we have to stop with our fantasy kicker slander now, do we? I think we might.
They much maligned throughout the regular season. They come to the postseason and they're nails, like hitting all those kicks, big kicks, high pressure kicks, far away kicks in bad weather, wind, whatever you like. I mean, it is really impressive, and that is again why they're the best of the best. I mean, great job by you putting him, picking the Bengals kicking special teams part in our league there. Another good one that I like too that you added Stafford, which has the multiplier as well. So I like. I mean, we're sitting pretty in that league as well.
We are. We have a shot. So even if Patrick Mahomes is eliminated this week, which is obviously unlikely, we're going to get that 3 times multiplier. And I'm hoping that we get, I mean, I don't know if I should say I'm hoping it's Mahomes and Stafford. I hope so for that league, but kind of like in my heart, like in your heart, what do you want to be the Super Bowl matchup? Not in your head as far as like how you're betting it, but kind of like, what do you want to see for the Super Bowl?
In my heart, it's the Bills. But,
I
know. But I guess I think I'm definitely leaning towards Joe Burrow. I want Joe Burrow there, and it just something about him, his demeanor, just like every week he does something you don't expect, like whether it's him throwing for 500 yards, him throwing for 5 touchdowns, him like getting sacked so many times, and just like I love his post game, like he has like this kind of like snark, not like a jerk, funny. But he's very like subtly funny. And I mean, just bringing a team that was like the Bengals, the Bungles, like they were made fun of for years for being a bad franchise, and like those teams, those really good teams with like Chad Ochocinco and TJ Houshmandzadeh, Carson Palmer, those years, like they couldn't quite, even to the Andy Dalton, couldn't quite. Yeah, they couldn't quite get over the hump. And now you have a guy who's doing it with just a loaded offense. I mean, everywhere you look, there's someone great. And it's
they're all like under age 26, right?
Yeah, very, very young. Very young.
I mean,
so they're in good. I know it's not a gimme that you'll always get back there, but they're in good position. And the same can go for the Chiefs. Whereas if they don't get it this year, the Chiefs did everything they're supposed to do. They added pieces on defense. I mean, Ingram making like what an impact. And then looking at their offensive line, which was the issue last year, why they lost to the Bucks. Really, it's been much better. Mahomes had so much time versus the Bills, and I know he moves very well. But I mean, these are 2 great teams that I think are going to be mainstays for obviously close to a decade. I'm not against the Chiefs and Mahomes winning, but I think it would be a lot of fun to see Burrow there. And on the reverse, I mean, they're both great stories, whatever way you want to cut it, where you have a guy in Jimmy G and this team. Like last year, the 49ers were just injury plagued every which way you looked. Defense, offense, they couldn't get it together. And Shanahan did a pretty good job with the backups and the backups that were in. And Jimmy G is like on his way out. They draft Trey Lance. He figured, okay, like he's just kind of be this one last year stopgap kind of guy. Get Trey Lance used to this offense, and we're gonna see you later. They'll probably, especially in a loaded NFC West, somehow make it. They own the Rams when they play during the regular season. They have the past few years, and they wind up winning a game in Lambeau in the snow. And now they're coming to a stadium where the Rams and their front office are so afraid it's going to be full of 49ers fans that they have to only sell tickets to people in the LA area. And like a lot of the season ticket holders apparently are 49ers fans. So he's going to have like a quasi home game. So I think that story is interesting just because Jimmy G, and I feel for the guy who is kind of like the lame duck quarterback. And then reversely, Matt Stafford, obviously, the Lions thing, never having success there. And now he gets to a team the first time in the playoffs. He wins those games, and McVay and Stafford and Cooper Kupp. Even the OBJ redemption story kind of thing. A lot of easy to root for stories. I guess Burrow is my main one, but I would NFC. Honestly, it's a coin flip. It's only a match. I'd be okay with the local team. I live in LA. Like for the diehards here, I'm fine with the Rams making it.
So let's talk about that ticket situation.
Yeah.
Is it kind of Bush League? I mean,
I think so.
I'm the first person to say like, sorry, 49ers fans. But as a whole, they can be a very difficult fan base. Maybe that's because I'm a Cowboys fan, but I can get why you don't want your stadium full of them, especially because they're all in California and they get here quickly. But to not sell tickets to people if their zip code isn't, I don't know, 90
something in the 900s. Yeah, we're all over the place.
90210. I mean, exactly. Like, come on, like. That's ridiculous. And honestly, it puts out an energy of that you're scared.
I'm just so shocked by this because like I'm just used to
weak.
seeing playoff games like when the Giants when they used to be good if you're way long ago and they would make the playoffs and the tickets would be astronomical prices, and I went to school in Boston, obviously saw what the Patriots playoff tickets look like no matter how many times they won, and to me I never even thought about like a team that's hosting a playoff game in their home city having issues to get their own fans to go. So part of me is like when people say like, oh no, LA fans are actually good, like they're gonna like they're there, like just so many teams, other stuff going on. It's like, no, I'm sorry, like they're not as good as other fan base. Like do you think that the 49ers are a great fan base? Do you think that Lambeau Field wasn't probably close to 99% Packers fans? Like, I mean, think of like there was no way that I know it's a weird place to travel to, but it's more of a transplant city here in LA. But I like it kind of lose respect that you can't sell out your own arena. Like you have this brand new quarterback coming in, like you have a legitimate Super Bowl contender, you can't fill it up. Like it's crazy.
The problem is, first of all, there's two teams here. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you got two teams, so that's a problem. You got the Chargers, you got the Rams, and then you've got the Rams haven't really been where St. Louis, like where are they from? The Chargers, where are they from? San Diego, like none of these, they don't have like this storied franchise history like the 49ers or the Dallas Cowboys or the Miami Dolphins. Like, they've just kind of been around a long time, so they've like generational fans. So on that, like, and LA had such a terrible stadium until recently. Like,
yes.
you go to the Coliseum, it was just not a fun experience. The food was terrible. The lines were terrible. You couldn't see anything. It was just like unpleasant to go. Now they have like the penthouse, like this super
it's sick. It's so awesome.
It's fantastic. Yeah. So if they can get people in there, I'm sure they'll go. But what I'm worried about is what they've done is switch the energy of the game. Like I'm all like, oh, I'm doing my Reiki or whatever. But it's kind of just a bad signal to be like, almost like waving the white flag early. Like you don't need to. In my heart, I want the Rams to win this game. I'm a little bit of a hometown person at this point too, right?
Yeah, I'm with
Obviously, Cowboys fan first, but I want it to be the Rams, and I want it from Matt Stafford. He's the oldest quarterback of the four. He needs it. I feel like he's earned it. Like it's his turn. There's going to be plenty of more turns for Patrick Mahomes. There's going to be plenty of turns for Joe Burrow. There's going to be no more turns for Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's already far exceeded any expectations, and he's like impossibly handsome. So like everything's fine for Jimmy G. I'm not worried about him. He's doing just fine. In fact, I heard that he and Megan might even be hooking up soon.
They're trying. The Megans are trying to. I know even with one, they're both married. One has a baby on the way, and they're still angling away for Jimmy G. I can't blame him. He's a handsome guy. But and I was thinking, you just brought up
the way he walked into the stadium last week with that.
Oh yeah, it was a good outfit. Very very good. He knows he has a lot to work with. He's very a confident man. But you brought up like Stafford being the oldest guy. It's so funny too to think about like Stafford, who's 33, is the oldest one in the four. But also like he would play like he was a Detroit Lion for a number of years, and I still feel like the Lions always would sell out. Like they have diehard fans, and like now he's in a city that like should be embracing him. He should be one of the is the face of the franchise. And like, how do you think like the players feel? They're like, oh, we can't find 100,000 Rams fans in a city of millions. Like it's crazy to me to think that like they're going through this issue when they are 60 minutes away from hosting the Super Bowl.
Well, let me start. I could say that one place that you could start Los Angeles Rams is by fixing your stupid logo because it's lame. It's not a cool logo. So you got to keep working on that because that does not inspire. It's not sexy. It's not sizzly. It's not. These are people in LA. They need a lot more than like something that I designed on my DOS keyboard in 1984. Like it's not that cool. So you got to start there, I think. And then they've got to do a better job of marketing, I think, for sure, in LA. And I guess LA is just not the kind of football town. Like, I mean, I grew up in Texas and
Sans College. I mean, I think USC, if USC, put it this way, if USC was playing for a national championship, they had a major game where they knew if they won the game they were in, like it's sold out. Like they've been struggling a lot as of late. And to me, it's just crazy. I know you said the Rams did move. That's fair, but they are here for like. I still feel like there's like 100,000 Rams fans that like I guess would like the ticket prices are another scenario which is funny with the 49ers because apparently I read something like the 49ers fan base, like household income is the highest in the NFL. So they have the means to buy tickets and
Well, there's
travel.
Silicon Valley.
Yes. So like I get why they're traveling here, but I mean, look, if the Rams want me to go dressed in blue and yellow and just give me tickets that aren't $800, I'll go there and do it. I don't care. I'll sell out for a game to help
really
you.
sacrificial, Eddie. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for taking one for the team, the Los Angeles Rams team.
They need it because I mean you have Whitworth's wife like saying like please don't sell them, I'll buy your tickets like if you don't want to go, if you're a Rams fan, and you have like Rams season ticket holders who have like 49ers fans with like they post their Rams season tickets pin they get, but they're wearing 49ers gear. It's I think you don't want that. You don't want your home playoff game, the conference title, to have more red jerseys than blue. I think that's a major problem.
Now, how do you see this game going? Do you see, I mean, so for fantasy wise and for DFS wise, obviously Cooper Kupp is the number one standout here, right? Matt Stafford should give you a pretty good game. I don't see it being a phenomenal game, though he has just been better lately, but he hasn't matched up particularly well versus San Francisco. They do have a bit of his number. We know Kyle Shanahan has studied Sean McVay. I'm sure Sean McVay has studied Kyle Shanahan. I feel like the Rams are due to win one. Like, how can they continue losing to San Francisco? The key to San Francisco, in my opinion, is Deebo Samuel, and he's the other must start in DFS. And he has absolutely dominated the Rams, specifically this year, 2 30-point PPR football games. And he is their Swiss Army knife, secret weapon. And I really feel like this game is Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp versus Deebo Samuel. Like, I don't even really calculate Jimmy Garoppolo in there. You're
right.
Very handsome, though, Jimmy. In case you're watching this, you are very handsome.
Yeah, don't feel bad. I'm with you on that, especially after the amount of fumbles. I know it was like an Akers issue. I like the run game. If you're the Rams, you're probably not trusting it as much. Although I feel like you should.
Well, 80% of the Rams' touchdowns have come through the air this year. Yeah. Like, this should be a Matt Stafford game, but San Francisco knows that.
Mm-hmm. We had on a -3, we had JB Long, the voice of the Rams, the play-by-play, and he said that Cooper Kupp this year alone by himself has more explosive / big plays than the entire Rams did all of last year, the whole entire team. So yeah, like you said, it's going to be through the air. It's definitely Kupp. Kupp is basically uncoverable at this point. And defense, or I can't tell, like, you know, that bomb first the Bucs to set up the field goal. It's just like, even with the safety back there, like single covering him, like it's just, especially Stafford has a great arm and will throw it deep. I don't understand like the lack of respect he's still getting, or maybe it is because Odell has looked a lot better, and he's also been wide open. He's making plays too, so I guess he's kind of drawing some coverage. But still, it's just like, I mean, the guy's he's a triple crown. He's like breaking records, and you're not covering him. And even when you knew in a game that Akers was fumbling the ball left and right, so you're going to want to throw the ball. That to me was a shock. I'm sure the 49ers will figure that out. So I mean, I was going to ask you, like, for fantasy purposes, if you're trying to play a Rams running back, I don't know which one you prefer after the fumbling mishaps, but I also feel like you're probably not going to want to look that direction because of how much they're going to throw the ball.
Yeah, it's interesting that you asked that, because I was just kind of digging into that for our DFS plays this week, and it's actually not a terrible matchup, believe it or not. But a lot of the reasons that's showing up that way is because Aaron Jones was just such a good passing weapon last week for Aaron Rodgers. So on DFS, I'm actually slightly tilting towards Sony Michel because he's so much more of a value. And here's the thing. There's no really good players at running back this week. You got Joe Mixon, who's going to get volume. But again, not a great matchup. Believe it or not, Kansas City has actually been the best of all these defenses all of a sudden versus the run game. Okay. Joe Mixon didn't have super success last time. And we've already said this is a Burrow game, right? So he'll throw to Mixon. He'll be fine, but he's the most expensive running back on the slate. So maybe you don't want to do that. Eli Mitchell, again, could have a decent game, but he's also sharing with Deebo Samuel. We don't know what's going to happen. Again, didn't have a great game last time these two matched up. So if you're just going to go really cheap, I'm looking at like Jerick McKinnon, who's like just become this like different weapon. Now, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was more effective on the ground last week, but McKinnon was catching passes. And if we think this is a high scoring game, that's what we're more interested in. So Cam Akers is still really cheap. He's only $300 or $400 more than Sony Michel. But if you really want to get Cooper Kupp in there, Deebo Samuel in there, I would put Sony Michel in there because they're going to have some kind of a ground game. They have to have something. And if you're worried about ball security, God bless Cam Akers for how fantastic he's been since he's come back. But ball security at the conference game level, I think Sony Michel should get more opportunities. He was phenomenal down the stretch. There's no reason not to trust him.
Totally agree. So he's been there, done that before. I mean, he basically won the Patriots the Super Bowl by himself. That versus the Rams. I'm with you on that too. The one other thing in that game, the Rams-Niners game, that I kind of worried about, but I also will favor Stafford. Not that you're going to look to play Jimmy G, but with Whitworth coming back, I mean, I'm not sure how healthy he is, but it's obviously you want your left tackle back. And reversely for Jimmy G, I don't know if I'm going to see a lot in the air from them, because Von Miller looks like young Von Miller again, and Aaron Donald. I mean, Aaron Donald's always Aaron Donald, but the Bucs O-line, I know they're a little bit banged up, more so than usual, but they're still pretty good. And I feel like every single play they were in Brady's face.
I mean, they were so smart to just do what they did. They just played it really well until the end when Tom Brady turned on the Tom Brady Jets like he does. And Eddie, that was a heartbreaker for us too. It was hard for me because I actually kind of wanted to see the Rams advance. And I had a gut feeling that Tom Brady wasn't going to go as far this year. But then again, part of me was like, if we could at least get Tom Brady, it's okay if Josh Allen happens to lose at that point. And then I was really needing Josh Allen later. Is he retiring?
I was going to bring this up too. Even I'm trying to think. I mean, it's either retiring or staying there, where it's a little bit different for Rodgers, who could actually go to another team. I think, the reports are saying now that he's probably leaning towards retirement. He has to talk to with his family. I mean, what else could you really ask for? You came. You went down to Tampa. You won in year one. You got your team very close in year two. And I mean, I could blame the injury card, losing Godwin, losing Fournette for a stretch. I know we got him back, using Wirfs, like O-line issues. Yeah, so it's like and the defense didn't play particularly well. But Tom, if those things are true, what Levante David said, there's like turmoil in the locker room, and they kind of read into those reports saying that Brady was a little frustrated with just the management. He felt like he was the coach of the team, and how certain guys were like, he just carrying them on his back. And once it starts to happen, he's, whatever age he is, mid-40s now. I would not be shocked if we've seen the last of Tom Brady.
I think there is no way in hell Tom Brady retires this year.
Really? Wow.
Why would he? It's total BS. It's part of his legacy now that he wants to look like this family guy and all this stuff, man in the arena, let's get quotes. There is no way he's retiring. Why would you retire when you were still at the absolute tippy top of your game? Like, there's no reason for him to retire unless Giselle wants him to. Let me tell you something. No woman wants their husband home and around the house all day in their 40s. No, we have to deal with that later in their 60s. Like, we don't really know. No, I mean, I joke, but like, I'm sure it would be nice to have him around. But this is a man with the kind of competitive spirit that literally he would probably drive her nuts if he was at home. Like, go take up golf. No, he can't do that because it's when the lowest score wins. That's too hard. He's got out. I don't see it. I think it's all part of the charm. And, maybe he doesn't even go to Tampa Bay. Maybe we get this total bombshell and he goes to Green Bay or something crazy like that. I mean, like, I cannot see it. And he's done this before. This whole story, just like Aaron Rodgers has done it before, and Gronk has done it before. And Gronk says, well, if you ask me today because I'm tired, I'm retiring. But they're not. They're just not. And I think even more that he's not, because of how good this young generation is, because you've got Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, and everybody's talking about how awesome this next generation is. And they are, especially in the AFC. It just gives him a little bit more reason to stay and prove he's the greatest.
I mean, you're right. He played at an MVP level, and I guarantee you
part of the MVP.
Yeah, and part of his head is like, he's probably thinking right now, like, man, if Godwin wasn't injured, man, if Tristan Wirfs wasn't injured, like all these things that kind of happen. He's like, we could have been right there.
Antonio Brown didn't flip out.
Antonio Brown's thing, like, there's too many things that went on that he were distractions or injuries that he could kind of say, like, well, if these didn't happen, then I would.
And he has all the cards now. If he comes back, he's like, because Tampa Bay is going to beg and come. He's like, I will do it, but only if you get me XYZ, Allen Robinson and whoever, and I don't know, Deshaun Jackson, or not Deshaun Jackson, but you know what I'm saying? Like, just like puts together a list and says, this is who I want. I have to have Brandon Cooks, or I have to have whoever, and he'll get to call all the shots. and they'll make that deal so they can have him. So he has like the most control maybe ever if he comes back. I mean, he kind of had that last year, but
do you think that he's better off staying in Tampa for fantasy purposes? Do you think he's better off staying in Tampa? I know Godwin's contract, I believe, also may be up, but like, or do you think there's a scenario where he can move somewhere else where it would be better for him production wise for fantasy if we're looking to draft him again next year if he does come back?
I'm not sure where he would go. I mean, obviously you could put him like in Denver where he has some receivers.
Right.
You could maybe even put him in Pittsburgh, which could be interesting. There's a lot of talent there. But I think probably the easiest thing for him to do, we know that Bruce Arians offense, I mean, look, Jameis Winston threw for 5,000 yards in Bruce Arians offense. He also threw for 30 interceptions, but you know what I'm saying. So we know that that's just a great fantasy friendly offense.
Right.
And, part of Tom's deal could be like, look, it's me and Godwin. And this is part of the whole thing. Like he could probably negotiate for Chris. If he wanted to.
I think if they keep Godwin and like if Gronk decides to stay too, I'm unsure about him. But they also had Brait, they also had OJ Howard. Like they have plenty of guys at every position, even the running back position, making like the second kind of half of Leonard Fournette's career made him playoff Lenny's awesome. And then they have Gio Bernard on third down passing downs. So like they have enough weapons. Mike Evans is probably the most underrated player in football who just only has 1,000-yard seasons. Like you have the guys there and you have the coach that is willing to throw the ball. So, and I know that he wants to stay on the East Coast for family reasons. I just think him leaving would be the third best decision of the three, which is either stay with the Bucs or retire. I think those are 1 and 2. So I think personally for fantasy, like if he stays with the Bucs, I'd have no problem drafting him next year.
I personally just think he stays with the Bucs. That's what I think happens. I think it's not complicated, but that does not make a good story. And everybody's talking about everybody else right now. So the only way that Tom can look gracious and all this at this point and still look good is to say, well, maybe I'm retiring and I'm going to take some time with my family. And I have to say he has become more endearing, smashing the tablet aside. That's fine. Over the last year or two since moving to Tampa Bay. But I also think that they've, since moving to Tampa Bay, he's probably been more fun to live with for Giselle. And they've probably also worked out a pretty good work-life balance where he's probably a happier human for the most part in general, because it didn't seem that he was actually genuinely happy in New England, or at least once we saw when he became Cool Tom and went to Tampa Bay, that there was a bit of a difference that he probably wasn't that fun at home.
There hasn't been a player in NFL history who's played for the New England Patriots who's after leaving the team, who said they were happy there. Like they said, like, look, we went there, we worked, we knew we had to do it. We were disciplined, we won. That was it. Like every single player that's coming out there, has been like, yeah, it was rough. It's a disciplined time. And they have said, like, sure, in certain times Belichick could show a sense of humor, but like, the whole organization just has one mindset. So yeah, I'm sure instead of being in freezing cold Boston for most of the months of the year and being in sunny Tampa Bay, where if the reports are true that you're the one basically coaching the team, running the team, I'm sure that it's a lot better of a scenario.
Yeah, I think so. So just to sum up our DFS tight end, if you guys are looking for a tight end, George Kittle, decent matchup. He had a decent game last week. But Tyler Higbee is the one I sort of have my eye on just because the price is right. He's the third highest price, and he's had 3 touchdowns this year versus San Francisco. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That seems to be a place that the one place they're able to actually score on San Francisco. So I imagine, he's been getting more and more targets. He's been getting more involved the last few weeks as well. So I haven't advocated for Tyler Higbee much of this year because there are so many options for Matt Stafford. It's just hard to guess when, but this feels like it could be it. And the price is right for his salary. So kind of like Tyler Higbee this week there. So Joe Burrow at quarterback, I think the best value of the week. Obviously, you can spend up for Patrick Mahomes. You can always spend up for Patrick Mahomes because Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and he can just do random things. Though the last time these two matched up, it was Joe Burrow that had the much bigger fantasy day, and Joe Burrow is much cheaper. So the combination, by the way, I kind of added some of these up. The combination of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase is less expensive by $1,200 than the combination of Stafford and Kupp, because though Stafford is less expensive, Kupp has become so high that you just have a lot more salary. You can maybe even get Chase and Kupp in a lineup. It's possible this week if you take a lot of dart throws and maybe like a Jawan Jennings, something really nasty like that. But again, Jawan Jennings, 92 yards last time these two faced off. So it could happen. You got to get nasty sometimes. Yeah. So that's where we are with DFS. I'm trying to think if there were any other highlights from the end. We don't need to talk about Aaron Rodgers. That can be its own podcast some other time. We talked about the Rams. We talked about the Bengals. Titans we glossed over. And then what else is there to say about Chiefs and Bills? Gabriel Davis.
He's going to skyrocket up. And another guy, and I could lead this into just maybe a Bengals thought, was with the Bills. I believe Devin Singletary played 100% of the snaps. Mm-hmm. But so I mean that's good for volume, but he only ran the ball 10 times. So then my brain now is working. Well, number one, next year for fantasy purposes, I guess Devin Singletary may be the guy in Buffalo. But the number two thing is, well, what happened to the Bills? They lost the Chiefs because time on the clock. Bills only ran the ball 10 times. Maybe Bengals were like, hey, Mixon, we're going to run you a lot to chew up the clock to give Mahomes less time with the ball in his hand. So that's maybe the one thing I would lean into. And maybe I'm kind of saying like why take Mixon and maybe why I like the Bengals in this matchup. But, they're getting 7 points too. It helps.
I like the Bengals in this matchup too because of the 7 points. I'm not sure I would take them to win outright. Look, I took a futures bet this week, plus 800 to win the Super Bowl on the Bengals because how fun is it to take plus 110 for the Chiefs? Yeah, they're probably going to win. But that's so fun. Like, why are you doing that? Even 10% return.
I'm with you.
Not interested. And it would be so much more fun to hold that ticket for Cincinnati. And I totally know you can lose, of course. But the Rams are plus 200 also would be cool. Not really a lot to win. So I kind of want it to be the Bengals. I'd like to take them to win outright. I think the Chiefs probably will win because they're the Chiefs and they've just done it before. And how do you root against them? But plus 7? A lot of points.
It is. And like I said before, if I had to pick, if the Bengals are going into the Bills versus the Chiefs, I think the Bengals, this is the outcome they probably would welcome the most. So, you're not playing in, it's going to be cold in Arrowhead, but not as cold as Buffalo. The defense has been better, but you could still argue not as good as the Bills defense. And I think, there's a shot here. If Mixon getting some success on the ground, I trust Burrow. Burrow is cold as ice and pressure situations and they have the weapons. I think this will be another fun game, but again, I'm not saying take on the money line, but 7 points helps.
Other game. Do you like 49ers plus 3 or do you think the Rams can actually win this one? They have not been good against the spread this year. They've been quite bad.
This is a tough one. It's
really
way
tough.
easier. It's way easier for me to pick the other game. And I keep doubting the 49ers and they keep finding a way to prove me wrong. And I've had a lot of people reach out. I have friends reach out to me, being like, you like following the pick graphics that we always put out for all the talent on EP. And they keep saying you keep picking against them. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't I pick against them? You guys, you have the worst quarterback by far in the playoffs. You drafted the guy waiting in the wings. And, you don't have your best player is a wide receiver running back hybrid. And you've had some injuries on defense. It makes sense to pick against them, but they have the Rams number. So that's what makes it so hard with how dynamite the Rams have been offensively. Basically, I think this game, the Rams game versus the Bucs, showed me a lot, not only offensively to go after a good defense like that, over the top, whichever way they had to beat you, they did. And how good the defensive front looked versus a good Rams offensive front. And if Von Miller and Aaron Donald play like that, I think it's going to be tough. And if Jimmy G can't do anything in the air, I just don't find a path for the 49ers to win this game.
212 yards of total offense. At the half, they had negative 17 yards. Mm-hmm. And somehow they won kudos to the special teams and all of that. But I don't see them. Again, like you said, how do you keep picking against them? I keep picking against them too, but it just doesn't seem like it should be. Now, Matt Stafford makes his share of mistakes. We saw Cam Akers nearly give the game away last week. So there's a lot of things that could go wrong, but in a vacuum, the Rams are just a far better team.
Sure.
In my mind. So I think I am going to, it's against all logic. The odds say, road dogs that have been given 3 to 6 points cover 57% of the time. And the Niners have covered more of the time this year. And obviously they've won outright both times versus the Rams. And everything about in my head says, Nat, you got to take the 49ers here because that's the pattern. But my heart says, God, the Rams are just a better team. They cannot let them win again. Like, they have to stop this here. So I asked you who you were kind of rooting for the Super Bowl. And as of today, I am rooting for Rams Bengals.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's Rams Bengals. I hope Rams fans show up and fill that building. And I hope as many Rams fans, if they do win this game, make it to Super Bowl Sunday again back at SoFi. And it'll be a good story for Stafford. And then reversely, I think, Joe Cool, who's just been nails for the Bengals and bringing this franchise that was made fun of all the way to the promised land, is really as good as it gets, beating Mahomes, like, David versus Goliath, so to speak. It's really as good as it gets. I think it's an all-time matchup, and it's a fun matchup that a lot of people will be interested in.
But I will say that if the Rams lose this game, I will definitely blame it on the bad karma of not letting anyone that doesn't have a Los Angeles zip code buy tickets. That's what I'm going to blame it on. I'm going to say they did it to themselves with the karma.
If San Francisco finds a way to win this game, and I said it on -3 a few days ago, and I could even up it more than what I said, but like they have to be, the 49ers have to be a top 3 organization of the last, I don't know how many years. But just to think, like, they're always kind of in the mix, like they're always involved. And I know, like, there's certain down years, but like they've never, like, whether it was with Alex Smith back in the day or Kaepernick, like, I know they lost the Giants and it was at 2011. They lost Super Bowl like 2013, but they're always just around. They never have the top end quarterback, and they just, whether it's coaching by Shanahan and obviously John Lynch doing a great job in the front office, like they just find the right guys and the right pieces, and they use the right schemes. They match up well across everyone.
The San Francisco run game is always valid. The problem has always been picking them, but it doesn't matter who's leading. It can be Raheem Mostert. It can be Jeff Wilson. It can be Eli Mitchell. Even the one chance Trey Sermon got when he was the only one left, he had a good game. Mm-hmm. So they find a way, like that. They just find a way to win, but not necessarily exceptional talent. I mean, again, sorry, Jimmy G, we keep picking on you, but they find a way to win. Yeah. And it is pretty incredible. It is pretty darn incredible. Little frustrating sometimes for fantasy, because you're trying to figure out, well, who is it? Because they think about their team and winning as a team more than they do about your fantasy team. Even like with Brandon Ayuk this year, how frustrating was that for us? And then last week you put up a total goose egg, which don't even get me started. But yeah, it is an incredible organization.
Insane. And I can end with this, and we've been picking on Jimmy G, so I'll say something nice. Jimmy, assuming, next year you're no longer a 49er, or they want to move on to Trey Lance, as a New York Giants fan, I will welcome you with open arms to have a friendly quarterback competition versus Daniel Jones in East Rutherford, New Jersey. So just please, I'm all, but you proved to me, you beat the Cowboys somehow, you beat the Packers somehow. We'll see this Sunday, but you've done more than enough, and I'd welcome you in Big Blue, open arms.
Jim G, I don't know if you realize it, but you've been getting love letters from everybody on the Extra Points podcast network over the last week. Pretty much everybody has sent you a love letter. So maybe we'll record them for you and send them to you. We'll let Megan get first in line. Feels like she has dibs.
Yeah, they call dibs first. I lost. I'm weak. Totally so.
Yeah, I think so. If you guys want to pick games with us, you can. If you're still in pursuit of your gold hat, like I am, be sure you check out extrapoints.com/arcade. We have an NFL pick'em contest every week. You've probably seen the really cool graphics where Eddie and I continue to pick against the San Francisco 49ers and we continue to lose. We're going to change that this week. You will see the graphic. We'll probably have a really lame Rams logo, which I hate, but that's the way I'm going to go. I'm pretty sure. Might change my mind. Probably going to go Rams. I'm going to go with my heart there, not my head. But you can play with us. Last week we had winners in our prop quiz. It was Jake Dumont who got 6 right. In our pick'em contest, it was Justice Dutterer who got 7 right. Brother Bry lost on the tiebreaker. That's brutal.
And he's one of the last of the members without a gold hat. So I feel bad for Bry.
Dang. And our first touchdown frenzy winner was Dan King. So congratulations to all you out there. And if you want your own gold hat, if you want to win one of these competitions, it is free to enter. All you have to do is head over to extrapoints.com/arcade. We'll get you set up as soon as you win. But you better be sure to get your tiebreaker, because apparently that's an important question. So good luck, everybody. It's been awesome hanging out with you on Wednesday afternoon. We will be back next Wednesday afternoon to break down all the things that happened and get ready to start previewing this Super Bowl. So you guys have a great week and enjoy the football.